The moon hung low in the sky, its pale light reflecting off the slick asphalt of the driveway. The sound of screeching tires echoed through the night as a black SUV halted in front of the sprawling estate. Javier Moretti emerged, his sharp features hard like a man on the edge of war. In his arms, cradled like a fragile doll, lay the woman who had once been his everything, Carmen Delgado. Blood matted her hair, her body bruised, but one thing didn't change. Her presence haunted him, even in unconsciousness. "Who the hell hit you?" Javier's voice, low and dangerous, was more than just a question. It was a promise. He would find whoever did this, and the price would be their life. Javier had once been driven by love and hope, desperate to make something of his life outside the shadow of his father, Rico Moretti, the infamous Mafia boss who ruled with an iron fist. But when Rico was murdered in a brutal betrayal, Javier's world shattered. His rise to power wasn't a choice but a necessity. The empire became his inheritance, along with all the bloodshed. Carmen had been his only constant. They grew up together, childhood sweethearts, whose love was pure, untainted by the world they lived in. But love, in their world, came with a price. Carmen was forced to marry Marco D'Angelo, a man whose ambitions stretched as far as Javier's, but in the opposite direction. Marco wanted control, not power, through respect. Their marriage was political, meant to keep peace between two warring families. As Javier carried Carmen through the massive doors of his mansion, memories flooded back. Her laugh, her touch, the way she would look at him when no one was watching. Those stolen moments had kept him alive in his darkest days. "Get the doctor here, now." His command was met with immediate action as his men scrambled to make calls. He laid her gently on his bed, his fingers lingering on her face, tracing a cut on her cheek. "Who did this to you, Carmen?" he whispered, his voice breaking. "What have you gotten yourself into?" Her eyelids fluttered, and for a moment he thought she might wake. But she remained still, her breathing shallow. Javier's heart clenched with fear and rage. Whoever had hurt her would pay with their blood. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Victor Franco, his most trusted lieutenant, stood in the doorway, his face grave. "Boss, we've got a problem. Marco's men are at the gates. They want her back." Javier's eyes darkened. "Tell them she stays with me. And Victor, find out who did this. I want names by morning." As Victor left, Javier turned back to Carmen, taking her hand in his. The woman who had stolen his heart years ago now lay broken before him, and he didn't even know why. What secrets was she keeping? What danger had found her? One thing was clear, he would protect her, even if it meant war. "This is just the beginning, and I know you're already invested. You can't leave these characters hanging, can you? Subscribe now so you won't miss how this story unfolds. You're already here, don't turn away now." The doctor left at dawn, leaving Javier alone with Carmen and a list of injuries that made his blood boil. 3 broken ribs, internal bleeding, a concussion. Someone had tried to kill her, or worse, send a message. But who and why? Javier hadn't left her side all night. He sat in a chair beside the bed, watching the rise and fall of her chest, terrified that if he looked away, she might disappear. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow on her bruised face. Despite everything, she was still the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. A soft moan escaped her lips as she stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, confusion clouded her gaze, then recognition and fear. "Javier?" Her voice was barely a whisper, cracked and dry. "Where am I?" "My home. You're safe now." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, wincing in pain. "Carmen, who did this to you?" Her eyes darted around the room as if searching for escape routes. "You shouldn't have brought me here. It's not safe." "Not safe?" Javier leaned closer, his voice gentle but firm. "Carmen, look at me. You're in my home, under my protection. Nothing will happen to you here." "You don't understand," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "This is bigger than you know, bigger than both of us." Before Javier could press further, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Carmen's eyes widened with panic, and she reached for it. But Javier was faster. The name on the screen froze him in place. Salvatore Ricci, his greatest enemy. "Why is Ricci texting you?" Javier's voice turned cold, the tenderness gone. "What aren't you telling me, Carmen?" She closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Javier, give me the phone and let me go. You're in danger just by having me here. I'm not letting you go anywhere until you tell me the truth." He placed the phone just out of her reach. "What are you doing with Ricci? Are you working for him?" The hurt in his eyes was unmistakable, the betrayal cutting deep. Carmen had been his everything, his one true love, and now she was somehow connected to the man who had been trying to destroy his family for years. "It's not what you think," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I never meant to hurt you." Outside, the sound of cars pulling up to the gate broke the tension. Victor burst into the room, his face grim. "Boss, it's Marco. He's demanding to see his wife. And he's not alone. He's got 20 men with him." Javier stood, torn between his need for answers from Carmen and the threat at his gate. "Tell them to wait. I'll deal with Marco myself." As he reached the door, Carmen called out to him, her voice desperate. "Javier, please be careful. Don't trust anyone, not even Marco, especially not Marco." The warning in her voice sent a chill down his spine. What did she know that he didn't? What game was she playing? And how did Ricci fit into all of this? You've seen how high the stakes are now. But this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far? Javier stood at the gates of his estate, face to face with Marco D'Angelo, the man who, on paper, was Carmen's husband. Marco's eyes were cold, calculating, nothing like the warm brown of Carmen's. 20 armed men flanked him, a clear message that he hadn't come to negotiate. "Where is my wife, Moretti?" Marco's voice cut through the morning air. "You had no right to take her." Javier stood his ground, unflinching. "I found her half dead on the street. Someone tried to kill her. Was it you, Marco?" Marco's laugh was hollow. "If I wanted Carmen dead, she would be. This isn't my handiwork." His eyes narrowed. "But I know more than you think. Carmen's been playing a dangerous game with both of us." A chill ran down Javier's spine. "What are you talking about?" "Your precious Carmen," Marco stepped closer, lowering his voice, "has been meeting with Salvatore Ricci for months, secret meetings late at night." "Did she tell you that?" The words hit Javier like physical blows. Carmen and Ricci, the man responsible for so much bloodshed in their world, the man who'd sworn to destroy everything Javier had built. "You're lying," Javier growled, but the image of Ricci's name on Carmen's phone flashed in his mind. Marco pulled out his phone, showing Javier photos, Carmen entering Ricci's club, Carmen sitting across from Ricci at a restaurant, their heads close together. "Still think I'm lying?" "What does Ricci want with her?" Javier's voice was deadly quiet. "The better question is, what does she want with Ricci?" Marco's smile was bitter. "Carmen's always been smarter than both of us. Maybe she's decided to back the winning horse." Javier's hand moved instinctively to his gun. "Get off my property." "Keep her," Marco said, backing away. "But watch your back, Moretti. The woman you love might be the one holding the knife." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and when she wakes up, tell her I know about Paris. She'll understand." As Marco's convoy pulled away, Javier stood frozen, torn between rage and heartbreak. Carmen, his Carmen, in league with his greatest enemy. It couldn't be true. But the evidence was mounting, and the doubt was creeping in like poison. "The truth is starting to unravel, and I can feel your heart racing. You need to know what happens next, don't you? This is just the beginning of the betrayal. Subscribe now. Don't leave these characters when they need you most. Can you really walk away without knowing the truth?" Javier returned to his bedroom, Carmen's betrayal burning in his mind. She was sitting up now, her face pale but determined. When she saw his expression, she knew Marco had told him. "Javier," she began, but he cut her off. "Ricci." His voice was ice. "You've been meeting with Salvatore Ricci, the man who swore to destroy my family, the man who's been picking off my people one by one." He threw the phone with Ricci's message on the bed. Don't lie to me, Carmen, not anymore. Tears filled her eyes. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. His control finally broke. Tell me why the woman I love is conspiring with my worst enemy. To protect you. Her voice cracked with emotion. Ricci was planning something big, something that would destroy you completely. I needed to know what it was. I needed to stop it. Javier stared at her, disbelief etched on his face. So you thought you'd handle Ricci on your own, the most dangerous man in the city? I had no choice. Her hands trembled. Marco wouldn't help. He wanted to see you fall. And I couldn't come to you. Ricci has spies everywhere. If he suspected I was working against him... She shuddered. Paris, Javier said suddenly. Marco mentioned Paris. What happened there? Carmen's face went white. He knows? Her voice was barely audible. Then we're all in danger. Before Javier could press further, Victor burst through the door, blood streaming down his face. Boss, we're under attack. Ricci's men hit the warehouse on the east side. Diego is dead. They left a message. He handed Javier a blood-stained note. Return what's mine or lose everything, Javier read aloud. His eyes met Carmen's. What does he want, Carmen? What does Ricci think I have? Me, she whispered. He wants me. Javier's world tilted on its axis. The woman he loved, the center of a war he hadn't seen coming. Trust between them lay shattered on the ground like broken glass, and with every question answered, 10 more took its place. Outside, sirens wailed as the first shots of war echoed across the city. The war has begun, and innocent blood has been spilled. Carmen's secret could save everyone, or destroy them all. Can you bear not knowing what happens next? Subscribe now to witness the truth unfold. The characters' lives hang in the balance. Can you really turn away from them now? Dawn broke over the city, painting the skyline blood red as Javier paced his office. His empire was under attack, his men on high alert, and the woman at the center of it all lay recovering down the hall. Carmen's words echoed in his mind. To protect you. Could he believe her? After everything, could he trust that her betrayal was actually an act of love? A knock interrupted his thoughts. Marco stood in the doorway, his expression grim. You've got some nerve coming here after yesterday, Javier said, hand moving to his gun. Marco raised his hands. I'm alone, and I brought you this. He tossed a flash drive onto the desk. Security footage from Ricci's club. Carmen didn't want me to show you, said it would put you in more danger. But you deserve to know. Suspicion clouded Javier's judgment, but curiosity won out. He plugged in the drive, and grainy footage filled the screen. Carmen sat across from Ricci, her face a perfect mask of admiration as she leaned in, laughing at something he said. Then the angle changed, showing Carmen's hand slipping beneath the table, placing a small device under Ricci's chair. She's been bugging him, Marco explained, for months. Recording his meetings, tracking his shipments, documenting his bribes to city officials. More videos played. Carmen photographing documents in Ricci's office. Carmen meeting with a man Javier recognized as an FBI informant. Carmen carefully avoiding Ricci's advances while extracting information. Why would you help her? Javier asked, eyes fixed on the woman he loved playing a dangerous game. Because I want Ricci gone as much as you do, Marco admitted, and because, despite everything, I care about her too. Not the way you do, but enough to keep her alive. A file appeared on screen, detailed notes in Carmen's handwriting, plans for hits against Javier's organization, names of moles in his operation, dates of planned raids. She saved your life 3 times without you even knowing it, Marco said quietly. Ricci was always one step ahead of you until Carmen got involved. Javier's phone rang. Victor's voice came through, tight with tension. Boss, Ricci just sent a video. You need to see this. The video showed Ricci, eyes cold as winter, standing in front of one of Javier's restaurants. Moretti, Ricci spoke directly to the camera. The woman belongs to me now. Return her, or I burn everything you love to the ground, starting with this. The video panned to show explosives planted throughout the building. You have 24 hours. This is just the beginning, and I know you're already invested. You can't leave these characters hanging, can you? Subscribe now so you won't miss how this story unfolds. You're already here, don't turn away now. The hospital wing of Javier's mansion was silent except for the steady beep of monitors. Carmen sat propped against pillows, her face still bruised but her eyes clear as she watched Javier enter the room. "You should have told me," he said softly, sitting beside her. "You shouldn't have faced Ricci alone." "I couldn't risk it," she replied. "Ricci has people everywhere. If he suspected I was feeding you information—" She shuddered. "He'd have killed everyone I love. Starting with you?" Javier took her hand, tracing the veins with his thumb. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." Carmen's story unfolded like a nightmare. How she'd noticed patterns in the attacks on Javier's businesses. How she realized someone close to Javier was feeding information to Ricci. How she'd approached Marco with her suspicions and they'd formed an uneasy alliance to protect Javier. "I let Ricci believe I was unhappy with Marco, that I wanted protection from both of you. He's obsessed with taking things that belong to others." Her voice wavered. "His advances were getting harder to deflect. Then last week, I found the plans for the hit on your convoy. I couldn't let it happen." "So you stole the plans," Javier realized. "That's why he had you beaten." Carmen nodded. "He suspected me, but couldn't prove it. He wanted to scare me, to remind me what happens to traitors." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was so afraid he'd kill you before I could warn you." Javier moved closer, cupping her face gently in his hands. "You risked everything for me." "I would do it again," she whispered. "Every scar, every moment of fear, it was worth it to keep you safe." The moment hung between them, years of separation dissolving in the space of a breath. Javier leaned forward, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke of everything they'd lost and found again. The moment shattered as Victor burst through the door. "Boss, they hit the docks. 15 men down. They left this." He handed over a blood-stained watch, one Javier recognized. It belonged to Antonio, who'd been with him since they were teenagers. Carmen gasped, clutching her side suddenly as pain contorted her features. "Javier." Her voice was strained. "Something's wrong." Blood bloomed across her hospital gown, dark and alarming. The doctor rushed in, face grim as he examined her. "Internal bleeding," he announced. "The trauma was worse than we thought. We need to operate now." As they wheeled Carmen away, her hand slipped from Javier's, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't leave me," she whispered. "Never again," he promised, watching as they took her through the double doors, leaving him alone with the weight of a war on his shoulders and the terror of losing her forever. "You've seen how high the stakes are now. But this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far?" The waiting room outside the operating theater felt like purgatory. Javier sat with his head in his hands, blood still staining his shirt, Carmen's blood. Every minute stretched like an hour as surgeons fought to stop the internal bleeding that threatened her life. Marco arrived, his face tight with concern. For once, the two men shared something pure: fear for Carmen. "Any word?" Marco asked, taking a seat across from Javier. "Nothing yet." Javier's voice was hollow. 3 hours in surgery. The tension between them remained, but circumstances had forced an alliance neither man had wanted. Their mutual enemy was moving against them both, and Carmen hung in the balance. Victor entered, his movements urgent. "Boss, I found something." He spread photographs across the table. "Ricci's attacks follow a pattern. Each hit gets closer to your inner circle. Diego, then Antonio, then the restaurant where you meet with the council." "He's not just attacking my business," Javier realized, studying the pattern. "He's isolating me, cutting off my support." "There's more," Victor continued. "We found a mole in our security team. Ricci knew about the shipment yesterday because Ramirez told him." Javier's eyes darkened. "Bring him to me." As Victor left, a doctor emerged from the operating room, his scrub stained with blood. "She's stable for now. We stopped the bleeding, but she's weak. The next 24 hours will be critical." Relief washed over Javier, followed immediately by fresh determination. Carmen had risked everything to protect him. Now it was his turn. He entered her room quietly. She looked impossibly fragile against the white sheets, tubes, and monitors surrounding her. Her eyes fluttered open as he took her hand. "Javier," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I need to tell you." "Save your strength," he urged, but she gripped his hand with surprising force. "No time. Listen to me." Each word seemed to cost her tremendous effort. "Richie, this was always about you, about your father." "My father? Rico has been dead for 3 years." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "That's what Richie wanted. Your father was investigating him. For money laundering, human trafficking. Rico had evidence that would have destroyed Richie." Javier felt like the floor was tilting beneath him. His father's murder had never been solved. Could Richie have been behind it all along? "It was always you, Javier," Carmen whispered as her eyes began to close. "You were always the target. The truth is finally coming to light, but at what cost?" Carmen's life hangs in the balance while Javier uncovers a conspiracy years in the making. Can you bear to miss what happens next? Subscribe now. These characters need you to witness their fight for justice. The mansion hummed with activity as Javier assembled his most trusted men. Marco leaned against the wall, his usual smug demeanor replaced by grim focus. On the table between them lay photographs, documents, and Carmen's meticulous notes on Richie's operation. "My father was building a case against Richie," Javier explained, the pieces finally fitting together. "Richie had him killed, then spent years dismantling our organization from within. And now he wants to finish what he started." "But why Carmen?" Victor asked. "Why was she so important to his plan?" Marco's laugh was bitter. "Because she was the perfect bait. The one person Javier never stopped loving." He met Javier's eyes across the table. "Richie knew if he had Carmen, eventually you would come for her. And I played right into his hands," Javier admitted, the weight of realization heavy on his shoulders. Carmen had been wheeled into the study, still weak but insistent on being part of the conversation. "He recruited me thinking I hated both of you," she explained. "I let him believe it. But then I discovered what he was really planning." She nodded to Marco, who produced a flash drive. "This contains everything Carmen collected, financial records, blackmail material, details of Richie's operations, enough to destroy him legally and enough to prove he ordered Rico's murder." Javier studied the faces around him, searching for any hint of deception. Trust came hard in his world, but Carmen had earned it with blood. "We have 24 hours before Richie expects his answer," Javier said. "We need to move our remaining assets, secure our people, and—" The mansion's security alarm blared, cutting him off mid-sentence. Victor's phone lit up with alerts. "Boss, we've got multiple perimeter breaches. They're coming from all sides." The first explosion rocked the foundation, shattering windows and sending plaster raining from the ceiling. Gunfire erupted outside as Javier's men engaged the attackers. "Get Carmen out of here," Javier shouted to Marco as he drew his weapon. "Take the tunnel to the garage, get her somewhere safe." "What about you?" Carmen reached for him, panic in her eyes. "I'm ending this," Javier promised, kissing her fiercely before turning to Victor. "Rally everyone at the East Wing. We're making a stand." As Marco wheeled Carmen away, Javier caught one last glimpse of her face, determined, afraid, but alive with a fierce love that had survived betrayal and bullets alike. Outside, flames licked at the mansion's facade as Richie's men closed in. The trap had sprung early, but Javier was done running. This ended tonight, one way or another. The battle has begun, and the mansion burns while enemies close in from all sides. Carmen and Javier have been separated just when they need each other most. Will they survive the night? Can love overcome such impossible odds? Subscribe now. Don't abandon them in their darkest hour. Gunfire echoed through the burning mansion as Javier and Victor fought their way to the East Wing. Bodies of Richie's men littered the hallways, but Javier's forces were taking heavy losses too. "Something's wrong," Victor shouted over the chaos. "They knew exactly where our defenses were weakest, where our panic room is located, every escape route." Javier's blood ran cold. Victor was right. This wasn't just an attack. It was too precise, too calculated. Someone had given Ricci detailed information about the estate's security. "We have a traitor," Javier realized, scanning the faces of his remaining men. Trust, already fragile, crumbled further. Who had betrayed them? Who had put Carmen in danger? His phone vibrated, a text from Marco. Made it to the safe house. Carmen safe but weak. Relief washed over him, followed quickly by suspicion. Marco had always been too convenient, too helpful since Carmen's return. Could he be playing both sides? An explosion rocked the east wing, sending men scrambling for cover. Through the smoke, Javier spotted a familiar face. Daniel, his security chief for 5 years, speaking urgently into a radio. Not to Javier's men, but to someone else. Javier moved silently, years of training taking over as he approached from behind. Daniel didn't notice until Javier's gun pressed against his skull. "Who are you talking to?" Javier's voice was deadly calm. Daniel froze. "Boss, I can explain." "Drop the radio." The device clattered to the floor, Ricci's voice still audible. "Confirm Moretti's location." Pain lanced through Javier's chest, not physical, but the ache of betrayal. Daniel had been like family, had attended Javier's father's funeral, had protected them through countless wars. "Why?" Javier demanded, forcing Daniel to his knees. "Ricci has my daughter," Daniel whispered, tears streaming down his face. "He said he'd kill her if I didn't help him. I'm sorry, Javier. I had no choice." Javier's finger trembled on the trigger. Family or not, betrayal meant death. Those were the rules that kept his world in order. His phone rang. Carmen. "Don't do it," she said, her voice weak but determined. "Daniel's daughter is here, at the safe house. Marco found her locked in one of Ricci's warehouses. She's alive, Javier." Javier stared at Daniel, the man who had betrayed him to save his child. And in that moment, he saw himself, what he would do for Carmen, what he had already done. "Get out," Javier ordered, lowering his gun. "Take your daughter and disappear. If I ever see you again, I won't hesitate." As Daniel fled, Javier turned to Victor. "Get everyone to the secondary location. This place is lost." Hours later, as dawn broke over the smoldering ruins of his empire, Javier held Carmen in his arms at the safe house, their bodies fitting together as if no time had passed. "I thought I lost you," she whispered against his chest. "Never," he promised, "not again." Their world is burning, their trust shattered by betrayal. The line between enemy and ally has never been more blurred. Carmen and Javier have found each other again, but at what cost? Can you really turn away now, knowing how much they've sacrificed? Subscribe to witness their fight for justice and love. Don't leave them to face Ricci alone. 3 days passed in the safety of the lakeside cabin, 3 days of healing, planning, and reconnection. Carmen grew stronger each day, the color returning to her cheeks as she sat by the window, watching the water shimmer under the afternoon sun. Javier found her there, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking more like the girl he'd fallen in love with than the woman who had survived hell to protect him. "The doctor says you're healing well," he said, sitting beside her. She smiled, taking his hand. "I've had good care." The simple touch sent electricity through him, a reminder of all the years lost, all the moments stolen from them by duty and circumstance. "Marco wants to meet," Javier said, watching her expression carefully. "Says he has information about Ricci's next move." "Do you trust him?" Carmen asked. "I trust that he wants Ricci gone. That's enough for now." They sat in comfortable silence, the calm before the storm that would inevitably come. Javier studied her profile, memorizing every line, every curve. "Tell me about Paris," he said finally. "Marco mentioned it, said it was important." Carmen's eyes darkened with memory. "Paris was where I first learned about your father's investigation. Marco and I were there for an art auction, a cover for meeting one of Rico's old contacts." She turned to face him. "Your father kept evidence, Javier. Documents that could destroy Ricci completely. He hid them before he died. Why didn't he tell me? Javier's voice tightened with renewed grief. To protect you. If you knew where it was, Ricci would stop at nothing to silence you. The door opened, revealing Marco. The tension between the men remained, but purpose had forged an uneasy alliance. Carmen, Marco nodded respectfully. You look better. What did you find? Javier asked, straight to business. Marco handed over a file. Ricci's planning something big. His men have been moving weapons into position around the city. Whatever he's doing, it's happening soon. He's getting desperate, Carmen observed. The longer I stay missing, the more he worries about what information I might have shared. There's something else? Marco hesitated, glancing between them. Carmen and our marriage was never real. Rico arranged it to protect her after he discovered she was helping with his investigation. He knew you would be a target, Javier. He wanted Carmen somewhere safe. Javier absorbed this revelation, years of jealousy and resentment shifting into something like gratitude. His father had protected the woman he loved, even as he fought a war he couldn't win. The peace of the moment shattered as a black SUV pulled up outside. A single figure emerged, walking calmly to the door despite the guns trained on him from every window. It's Ricci, Victor announced, his voice tight with tension. He's alone. You've seen how high the stakes are now. But this is just the beginning. What happens next will change everything. Subscribe now and stay with us. You won't want to miss what's coming. Can you walk away now, knowing you've come this far? Javier stood in the doorway of the lakeside cabin, gun drawn, as Salvatore Ricci approached with his hands raised. The man responsible for so much bloodshed walked calmly as if arriving for a business meeting rather than confronting enemies. Bold move, coming alone, Javier said, his voice cold. Ricci smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. Not alone, Moretti, just the only one you can see. He gestured to the surrounding woods. My men have this place surrounded. I simply wanted to talk before things get, messy. Marco appeared at Javier's side, his own weapon ready. Talk fast. I came for what's mine, Ricci said simply. Carmen has something that belongs to me, information that could be problematic. She's not yours, Javier growled. She never was. Ricci's laugh was cold. Is that what she told you? That she was playing me, working against me? He shook his head. She's quite the actress, I'll give her that. But do you really believe she could fool me for so long? The seed of doubt was planted exactly as Ricci intended. Javier felt it take root despite everything he knew, everything he believed about Carmen. You have 1 hour to bring her to me, Ricci continued, or my men will burn this place to the ground with everyone inside. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Marco, your brother says hello. The shock on Marco's face was genuine. My brother is dead. Is he? Ricci smiled again. 1 hour. As Ricci disappeared into the trees, chaos erupted. Gunfire blazed from multiple directions, shattering windows and splintering wood. It's a setup, Victor shouted, diving for cover. He was never here to negotiate. Javier ran back inside, finding Carmen already on her feet, pale but determined. We need to go. Now. He grabbed essential documents while Marco covered them. They made it to the basement tunnel just as the first explosive hit the cabin's north wall. Fire bloomed above them as they crawled through the narrow passage toward the hidden garage. Ricci's men are at every exit. Victor's voice crackled through the radio. We're surrounded. Marco took point, shooting the lock off a metal gate that led to the boathouse. This way, we can use the lake. Outside, the world had erupted into war. Javier's men exchanged fire with Ricci's forces from every direction. The cabin burned fiercely behind them, flames reaching into the afternoon sky. They reached the boathouse, Marco securing the small motorboat while Javier helped Carmen aboard. Her breathing was labored, the exertion clearly straining her healing body. Get her to the south shore, Javier told Marco. I'll hold them off. Javier, no! Carmen clutched his arm. Come with us. "I'll be right behind you," he promised, knowing it might be a lie. "Marco will keep you safe." As the boat pulled away, Javier turned to face the approaching force. He would buy them time, whatever the cost. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. A second boat roared from the far side of the lake, cutting off their escape. Men in black tactical gear opened fire. Marco threw himself over Carmen as bullets tore through the hull. Javier watched helplessly from shore as the boat listed taking on water. He saw Marco return fire, saw Carmen struggling to reach something in the boat's compartment. Then came the explosion, not from the boats, but from the hill above. A rocket launcher targeting Javier's position. The blast threw him backward, consciousness slipping away as he hit the ground. His last sight was Carmen being dragged from the sinking boat into Ricci's vessel, her eyes locked on his across the water, her mouth forming his name in a silent scream. The war has reached its breaking point, and Carmen has been taken. Javier lies wounded, separated from the woman he loves. Will he survive to save her? Can love overcome such impossible odds? Subscribe now. Don't leave them to face this darkness alone. Javier awoke to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the dull ache of burned skin. The hospital room was private, secured by his remaining men. Victor sat beside the bed, relief flooding his face as Javier stirred. "How long?" Javier's voice was raw from smoke. 2 days, Victor replied. "The doctor wasn't sure you'd make it." Memory crashed over him, the attack, the boats, Carmen being taken. "Where is she?" he demanded, struggling to sit up despite the pain. "Where's Carmen?" The door opened, revealing Marco, his arm in a sling, his face bruised but very much alive. "They have her," he said grimly. "Ricci sent this an hour ago." He handed over a phone. The video showed Carmen, bruised but defiant, tied to a chair in what appeared to be a warehouse. Ricci's voice came from off-camera. "A life for a life, Moretti. Yours for hers. Come alone to the old factory district by midnight, or she dies slowly." Javier's grip tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. "Get me out of here," he ordered, ripping IV lines from his arm. "You can't face him like this," Victor protested. "You'll be walking into a death trap." "I don't care." The machines wailed as Javier disconnected himself. "I lost her once. I won't lose her again." Marco stepped forward, blocking his path. "There's another way," he said quietly. "Carmen managed to pass me something before they took her." He produced a small key. "She said it opens a deposit box in Paris. Rico's evidence against Ricci." "We don't have time to get to Paris and back before midnight," Javier growled. "We don't need to." Marco's eyes gleamed with unexpected determination. "I had someone fly it in yesterday. The contents are in your safe house downtown." For the first time, Javier saw Marco clearly, not as a rival, but as someone who cared for Carmen in his own way. "Why help me? You could take the evidence yourself, use it to take down Ricci, claim everything." "Because she loves you," Marco said simply. "She always has." Across the city, Carmen worked silently at the ropes binding her wrists. The warehouse was cold, damp with river mist that crept through broken windows. 2 guards stood nearby, bored but alert. She had memorized their rotation, noted the cameras, mapped possible exits. Ricci had underestimated her, thinking her broken by pain and fear. He didn't understand what loving Javier had taught her, that sometimes survival meant becoming as dangerous as the world around you. The ropes gave slightly, 1 more hour, maybe less, and she might free herself. But freedom meant nothing if Javier walked into Ricci's trap. Somehow she had to warn him. Her chance came when 1 guard stepped outside to smoke. The remaining man approached, his eyes traveling over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "Water," she whispered, her voice deliberately weak. "Please." He hesitated, then brought a bottle to her lips. As he leaned close, she struck, head-butting him with all her strength. He stumbled backward, stunned, and she threw herself sideways, chair and all, crashing into him. They fell together, the chair splintering on impact. Carmen rolled, grabbing a jagged piece of wood as the guard recovered. His shout died in his throat as she drove the makeshift weapon into his leg. She had almost reached his gun when the door burst open. Ricci stood there, flanked by more men, his expression almost admiring. "You continue to impress me, Carmen," he said as his men subdued her. "Such fire, such determination." He checked his watch. "But it's too late. Javier is already on his way, and when he arrives, you'll watch him die." Back at the safe house, Javier studied Rico's evidence. Financial records, witness statements, photographs linking Ricci to dozens of murders, including Rico's, enough to destroy him completely. "We could end this legally," Victor argued. "Take this to the FBI, let them handle Ricci." "And Carmen would be dead before they made the arrest," Javier countered, checking his gun. "No, I'll go to Ricci alone, like he asked." "That's suicide," Marco protested. "Not if you follow the plan." Javier's eyes were cold with purpose. "Carmen risked everything for me. Now it's my turn." As midnight approached, Javier drove toward the meeting point, Rico's evidence secured. His decision was made. One way or another, tonight would end this war, even if it cost him his life. The ultimate sacrifice lies ahead as Javier prepares to trade his life for Carmen's. Will his desperate plan work, or is he walking straight into Ricci's final trap? Subscribe now. The most heart-wrenching moment of their story is about to unfold. Can you really turn away when they need you most? The abandoned factory loomed against the midnight sky, its broken windows like dark eyes watching Javier's approach. He drove alone, unarmed as Ricci had demanded, but far from helpless. In his breast pocket rested a flash drive containing his father's evidence, his final card in a game where Carmen's life was the prize. Inside, Ricci waited in what had once been the main production floor, now an empty concrete expanse lit by portable floodlights. Carmen knelt beside him, her wrists bound, her face bruised but her eyes fierce with defiance. 8 armed guards created a perimeter, weapons trained on Javier as he entered. "Right on time," Ricci called out, his smile cold. "I've always appreciated punctuality." "Let her go," Javier replied, his voice steady despite the rage coursing through him. "I'm here, just like you wanted." Ricci laughed, grabbing Carmen's hair to pull her head back. "You don't make demands here, Moretti, but I am a man of my word. Your life for hers." Carmen's eyes locked with Javier's, conveying a silent message. "Don't do this. Run." "Release her first," Javier insisted, taking a measured step forward. "Pat down," Ricci ordered his men. 2 guards approached, roughly searching Javier for weapons. They found nothing, missing the flash drive hidden in the lining of his jacket. "He's clean," one reported. Ricci nodded, releasing Carmen's hair. "Cut her loose." As a guard sliced through her bindings, Carmen tensed, ready to run, not away from the danger, but toward Javier. "Not so fast," Ricci cautioned, pressing a gun to her temple. "Say your goodbyes first." Carmen stumbled toward Javier, her steps uneven but determined. When she reached him, her voice was barely a whisper. "Marco betrayed us. He's working with Ricci." The revelation hit Javier like a physical blow. Marco, who had provided the evidence, who had helped plan tonight's operation, who was supposed to be leading Javier's men in a surprise attack. "I know about Marco," he murmured against her hair, holding her close for what might be the last time. "That's why I changed the plan." Confusion flickered across her face, but Javier squeezed her hand in reassurance. "Trust me." "How touching," Ricci mocked. "Carmen, move away from him now." "No." Her voice strengthened as she turned to face Ricci. "If you want him, you'll have to go through me." "That can be arranged," Ricci replied coldly, raising his weapon. The factory windows shattered in a synchronized explosion of glass and gunfire. Not from Marco's position, but from the opposite direction, where Victor had repositioned their forces after Javier's last-minute change. Chaos erupted as Ricci's men scattered for cover. Javier pulled Carmen down behind a concrete pillar as bullets flew overhead. "How did you know about Marco?" she gasped, pressing close to him. The evidence he brought was incomplete, Javier explained. Pages were missing, ones that would have implicated him in my father's murder alongside Ricci. Through the smoke and gunfire, they spotted Ricci retreating toward a rear exit, flanked by his remaining guards. And behind him, Marco, his betrayal now complete. "We can't let them escape," Carmen said, determination hardening her voice. "Your father deserves justice." "We aren't doing anything," Javier countered. "You're getting out of here." Before she could argue, Victor appeared beside them, his face smeared with soot. "Boss, we've secured the north exit, but Ricci's heading for the river dock with Marco." Carmen's eyes met Javier's, an entire conversation passing between them without words. She knew he would never stop pursuing Ricci, not now, not with his father's murderer so close. And he knew she would never leave his side again. "Together," she said, her hand finding his. "Together," he agreed, leading her through the battlefield toward the final confrontation. The betrayal cuts deeper than any knife as Marco's true allegiance is revealed. Javier and Carmen now face Ricci together, but with bullets flying and enemies on all sides, will their love be enough to survive? Subscribe now. The final battle is about to begin, and you won't want to miss a single moment of their fight for justice. The river dock stretched into darkness, mist curling over the black water. Ricci and Marco stood at the edge, a speedboat idling nearby, their escape just moments away. 4 guards formed a barrier between them and the approaching threat. Javier and Carmen moved silently through the shadows, Victor and his men creating a diversion at the warehouse's main entrance. The element of surprise was their only advantage against superior numbers. "Remember," Javier whispered, "this ends tonight, one way or another." Carmen nodded, determination etched on her face. "For your father. For us," he corrected, touching her cheek gently. The first guard fell silently, Javier's knife finding his throat before he could shout a warning. The second turned at the sound of his comrade's body hitting the ground, only to meet Carmen's stolen pistol. Her shot echoed across the water, destroying any hope of a stealthy approach. "Go," Ricci shouted to Marco. "Start the boat." But it was too late. Javier emerged from the shadows, gun trained on Ricci's heart. "It's over," he called out. "You killed my father. Now you pay." Ricci's laugh was hollow, desperate. "Your father was weak. He thought he could bring me down with paperwork, with law. In our world, power comes from blood." "You're wrong," Javier replied, advancing slowly. "My father was building something legitimate, something that would last." "Tell him," Carmen urged, her weapon trained on Marco. "Tell him the truth about Rico's death." Marco's face twisted with contempt. "Your precious father discovered I was helping Ricci launder money through my casinos. He threatened to expose us both unless we walked away from the business. He had to die." "So you killed him," Javier said, the final piece clicking into place. "Not Ricci, you." "We did it together," Marco sneered. "Partners in crime. Just like you and I were supposed to be partners in running your father's empire. But you were too blinded by your love for Carmen to see the opportunity." The betrayal burned like acid, but Javier maintained his focus. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. For his father, for Carmen, for himself. "Drop your weapons," he ordered. "Both of you. It's over." "It's never over," Ricci replied, his hand moving to his jacket pocket. "Not for men like us." The gunshot rang out before Javier could react, but it wasn't Ricci who fired. Carmen's bullet caught Marco in the shoulder as he raised a concealed weapon behind Ricci's back. The distraction gave Ricci his opening. His gun appeared, aimed not at Javier but at Carmen. Time slowed to a crawl. Javier saw Ricci's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Carmen's eyes widen, felt his body move on instinct, throwing himself between them as the gun fired. Pain exploded in his chest, hot and immediate. He staggered but stayed upright, returning fire in a fluid motion that sent Ricci reeling backward. The mob boss fell to his knees, blood blooming across his expensive shirt. "You're just like your father," he gasped, life already fading from his eyes. Too honorable to survive. Ricci collapsed, dead before he hit the ground. Marco, wounded and abandoned, dropped his weapon in surrender as Victor's men swarmed the dock. Javier swayed on his feet, strength draining as blood soaked through his jacket. "Carmen," he whispered as his knees gave way. She caught him, lowering him gently to the ground, her hands pressing desperately against his wound. "Stay with me," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Don't you dare leave me now." "We won," he murmured, reaching up to touch her cheek, leaving a streak of red against her skin. "My father can rest now." "This isn't the end," Carmen insisted fiercely. "You hear me? This isn't how our story ends." As darkness closed in around him, Javier focused on her face, the woman he had loved his entire life, the one thing worth fighting for, worth dying for. "I love you," he whispered as his eyes drifted closed. "Always have." Justice has been served, but at what cost? Javier lies bleeding in Carmen's arms, his life hanging by a thread after defeating their enemies. Will their love story end in tragedy, or is this just another beginning? Subscribe now to discover if love truly conquers all, even in the darkest moments. Beep, beep, beep. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor was the first sound Javier heard as consciousness returned. Bright light filtered through his eyelids, pain throbbing dully in his chest where Ricci's bullet had nearly claimed his life. "He's waking up," a familiar voice whispered. "Carmen." When Javier finally opened his eyes, she was there, looking exhausted but beautiful. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She hadn't left his side in 3 days. "You stayed," he murmured, his voice rough from disuse. Carmen's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "Always," she promised, taking his hand. Victor appeared in the doorway, his expression a mixture of relief and urgency. "Boss, glad you're back with us. We need to talk." He glanced meaningfully at Carmen. "Both of you." The world hadn't stopped while Javier fought for his life. Ricci's death had left a power vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, especially in their world. "Marco talked," Victor explained, placing a file on the bed. "In exchange for protection, names, dates, operations, everything about Ricci's organization." "And my father's murder?" Javier asked. "Confirmed. Marco pulled the trigger, but Ricci ordered it." Victor hesitated. "There's more. The evidence your father collected, it implicated city officials, judges, even federal agents. We've triggered an earthquake, and the aftershocks are just beginning." Carmen's grip on Javier's hand tightened. "What about us? Are we safe?" Victor's silence was answer enough. "Who's moving against us?" Javier demanded. "Antonio Castellano. He was Ricci's partner in Miami. Word is he's already in the city, consolidating Ricci's assets." Victor looked grim. "And he blames you for everything." Javier closed his eyes briefly, feeling the weight of an endless war. When he'd taken his father's place, he'd dreamed of building something legitimate, something that would last. Now he wondered if that dream would ever be more than just that, a dream. "We have choices," Carmen said softly, reading his thoughts as she always could. "Your father's evidence gives us leverage. We could disappear, start over somewhere new." The offer was tempting, a life with Carmen, away from the blood and betrayal that had defined his existence. But running wouldn't stop the violence. It would only redirect it toward those left behind. "This is our home," Javier decided, meeting Carmen's gaze. "We fight for it, together." Her smile was both sad and determined. "Together," she agreed, leaning down to kiss him gently. Outside the hospital window, the city sprawled before them, a battleground of shadows and light. The war wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But for the first time, Javier wasn't fighting alone. As Carmen curled beside him on the narrow hospital bed, careful of his wounds, he held her close and whispered into her hair, "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The battle against Ricci may be won, but a greater war looms on the horizon. Carmen and Javier have chosen to stand together no matter what darkness comes. Will their love be enough to face what's coming? Will they finally find peace in a world built on violence? Their story continues, but will you be there to witness it? Subscribe now and join them on their journey through shadow and light. Some stories are too powerful to walk away from. Isn't this one of them?